we go. All right. Welcome. Is that a little tune from Lebanon?
That's the Hanuman Chalisa
Nice. Oh,
by
you sent me that today. Thank you.
by Krishna Das, reminding me to be of service always.
Always of service. Always of service. Hey, well, thanks for joining me. So this is really helpful because I feel like we're all trying to figure out where we are in the market, and our stats really aren't telling us anything as we go forward because, of course, that's numbers are always a lagging indicator. And the lagging indicator thus far has been that if we were just looking at this quarter compared to last quarter, this quarter has been stronger than this time last year. We are just
That's right.
We are just exactly on pace. It's almost like per clip, which
which is hard to interpret because, as you put it, it's a lagging indicator and things are changing. Yeah. We've just never had things change so dramatically, so quickly. The coronavirus really changed, and we're all trying to interpret what's going forward. We're trying to forecast with it. But like you said, the data that we have present and available up to the minute, up to this morning, is super strong.
Is really strong. Yeah, I was.
How do you interpret that going forward with what's changing this week that will be next week's data or 3 weeks from now data? And this is hard.
Yeah, so we're guessing. So I thought what was really interesting is I was just looking at the spike of the market index and what we had for inventory. And if we look at the market index, we had this just like really intense spike the first week that we had the shelter in place and the corona news really hit Oregon. And if I didn't know it was corona, I would be like, well, what happened there? It looked like the sunniest week at Oregon.
Totally.
Because everybody was out. And so we had a spike up to 62. And usually that market index was hovering in the mid 50s. And then it came down to 60 the following week, which is still super high. It's a very, very aggressive seller's market. And then we've fallen down now to where it's 58, which is still on the top end of a spring selling season. So still being a really strong seller's market. Yet those on the ground are saying they're seeing their buyer pipelines dwindle. And we know if less buyers get into the market, then that's, less leverage for sellers, and and I'm still uncertain. This week feels totally different than last week. This week's really different. As you know, I'm currently sitting on the board as the president of the Entrepreneurs Organization, and we were getting news out every single day, headlines to support small business owners and business people, and everything was changing. And this week feels like, oh, here's the first week that we don't have daily news. Like here's the new reality, and
new temporary normal.
The new temporary normal, or who knows how long temporary. And so I'm really curious right now to see, like, does that mean does that mean the market kind of stabilizes too, and we kind of return to a pace? Like now everybody knows that this is how you sell, this is how you're going to show a house, this is how you're going to look at a house. Or will the furthering that we go on and the more that we hear news about recession, is that going to have buyers pull back? And that's so hard for me to get at because, again, we're not like a consumer good. Like people aren't buying houses for fun or because it's the latest style. It's because people need to move most often. So we are a part of this market, but separate from it in this strange way too. So I don't feel very certain myself. I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I think maybe you and I could talk about what it was like to do business in the recession.
Yeah.
The last recession, and like what that was like. This feels really different than that, but I still think that would be helpful for.
Well, just real quick, you said it's like two sides of the coin. One side is we now know what it's like to do business. We have this new way of doing business. We know it's like to show houses or sell houses or appraisals or whatever.
Yeah.
Fannie has lightened up the appraisal guidelines a lot to really make the process flow better. In other words, if the appraiser doesn't want to go to the house, They probably don't need to. We can do desktops and we're getting more waivers. Inspectors have figured out how to do their thing. Showing agents have figured out how to do their thing. Listing agents, title companies, notaries, all this stuff is effectively, not the least of which Homeland Security and Governor Brown prior to that saying, keep doing real estate. But what the other side of the coin is just plain demand. When I feel like in my personal life, I'm always like, if there's any kind of incongruence or any kind of resentment or fear about something or some sort of like upset somewhere in my life, I always want to get down and boil it down and distill and find the little core fear. And it's kind of always the same thing. It's like, I'm afraid I'm alone in the universe. And the ultimate truth is I'm not. But I want to boil it down and find that thing. And then from there, I can build back out of it. And then I have a plan that's like based in something strong. What I think we do in real estate or in any business is we go down to supply and demand, and then we build back up through. And then we look at the theories on top of it. And the supply and demand says we had an inordinate amount of demand, unsustainable amount of demand, 35 offers, 14 offers, 7 offers, 12 offers. I got 8 2 weeks ago on a property. We lost the buyer due to COVID related stuff. A couple of her friends fell to this disease. She was an older single person. We got it back into contract at potentially even better terms, actually, with two buyers 2 weeks later. I mean, like, talk about a anecdotally positive story, both about the market conditions. Yeah, there were still buyers in the market. Not to mention the other handful that were not coming back to compete the second round 2 weeks later. 3 or 4 of them are because they're in contract elsewhere.
Yeah,
not because of
8
COVID.
offers total on that property, right?
That's right.
So more than half of them got to contract somewhere else, and then you were doing the other
within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
not just someday, within 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is great.
So it's one piece of data, but it's actually 12 pieces of data.
You're right.
A lot of buyers and one listing and a second listing 2 weeks later. So there's the model, like, how are we doing this? Then there's the like underneath, what are buyers doing today and next week? And that's what everybody's afraid of. And if we have to boil down what our industry fear is, it's, are buyers going to be making choices to purchase homes in the next 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
End of conversation. If we could put that as a headline, every agent would agree that underneath all of the concern and fear at the bottom is that question. And it's always that question, because that's the same question we had 3 weeks ago and 3 years ago and 30 years ago. That's it. Are people going to buy houses? If they're not, then there's no industry.
Who's going to call me this week? It's not that question has changed.
That's right. In my view, regardless of whether 35 buyers buy in the next 3 months on my team or in the next 12 months on my team, that is projected, forecasted, and or pre-booked business. That's what's going to happen. If I'm dead wrong, and it will be 3 buyers in the next 12 months, like, this is like a 1% probability. There's just like no way that's going to happen. But if I'm wrong and that happens, that's plan B. That's like, sorry, Janessa, Jessica, and Martha, we don't have the same team I thought we had. And I was fucking wrong, and apparently I'm bad at this, and dinosaur, nobody's buying houses, or they won't buy it with me anymore, whatever. This is very, very, very unlikely. The other thing that's also unlikely is that we're going to continue selling houses at the same clip we have been in this last quarter, even though this quarter's been super strong. Super, super, super strong. Even the first 3 weeks of COVID, it's been super strong. The idea that that's going to continue at the same clip as a normal year is very unlikely in my view.
Well, that wouldn't be normal in any year.
Right. And the reason I think it's abnormal right now is because, or the reason I think it's unlikely is, and that I do think we'll have a diminishing buyer, is because of conversations I've had with lenders about their rate of flow. And these are lenders that do a lot of business. And I've sort of done these like sort of micro interviews over and over again. And this week, what I'm hearing at the beginning of this week, what I'm hearing is, we're down quite a lot in terms of new buyers coming to us to initiate a new purchase conversation, new loan approval conversation. That, to me, that's our forecaster. That's our data that we want. We want that data, so that, because that tells us what's coming. And so I do that a lot during the year. I'll call my lenders and say, hey, how's it going? And are we going to be getting these calls? It also reminds them to refer to me. If that is lessened, then we're probably going to see a lessening. I can speak from my own experience, though, on a flip side of that, unless I'm going too long here. If I'm being too long-winded, tell me.
No, please.
My, again, anecdotal, it's this one team, our buyer pipeline, 0% of our buyer pipeline has showed a level of concern that means they're out of the market completely.
Right.
0%.
Right.
50% to 65%, which is a lot, has showed a slowdown of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Probably half of that has been a slowdown that is a very confirmed other side of Corona, meaning maybe a few months, 4 months, whatever like that. And we'll see. Some percentage of that maybe trickles off because depending on how things go. So if we look at the numbers, my concerns that might arise during the course of the day with this article or that person or this anecdotal deal or whatever are all answered with a really simple equation, like what's supply and demand. Supply and demand was abnormally way too, which meant I should call everybody in my database and get them to sell a house. Mm-hmm. And now it's flipped. I should call everybody that's a buyer and say, if you have strong security in your job, if your finances haven't been wiped out, or if some of them have, and you want like a secure long-term place to go, this is an opportunity for buyers. I don't think it's a scream and deal opportunity. We had one buyer try to do that on a listing of mine this week. We've been on the market for 8 days or something. They wanted like a 12% discount, and you know what we said to that.
Yeah.
There's no way. That, and my clients are like, well, is that offer really? And I'm like, yeah, it really is that bad. Yeah. That's how bad it is. In fact, we could wait a couple months and get better than that. Don't worry about it. It's just like not even a thing.
Yeah.
Those buyers will be out there and they will think that they get that kind of opportunity. That is not the opportunity. Yeah. The opportunity is 11 days on market. Cool. I don't have to write 12% over. Can we have a normal conversation about price and value and look at comps in the area? Can we have a little flexibility on timeline because I'm moving from an apartment or because you need a little, can we have a normal negotiation that has some good faith and goodwill in it? Mm-hmm. Hey, you know what I might need actually is a little bit longer around my loan. Sure, you probably can get that. And also when we get into inspections, can we have a reasonable conversation about inspections, please? I don't want to this like write off all contingencies on day one with 12 offers on top on the hood of a car.
Yeah.
And I think that's healthy. I don't think, I'm not being a cheerleader like next week is going to be amazing. Best week of my life. I'm not saying that. We all have a lot of things to be concerned about in terms of the future. And if we have the numbers we've had from the last quarter shrink by 12%, 20%, 30%, if the number of new buyers coming in shrinks by 12%, 20%, 30% because of employment or assets or fear of the market, whatever. Mm-hmm. If all those things shrink, we end up likely, in my analysis, likely at a kind of relatively like balanced market, maybe a little even more in the buyer favor than we would normally see. That's certainly a lot more than we would normally see in a spring or summer market. But is there a rebound on the backside?
And we haven't seen that in a long time.
That's right.
We've not seen, and being just going back to the recession, one of the things that I remember agents reaching out to me was, how are you so busy? And well, because I was a buyer's agent.
Yeah,
I was a buyer's agent before I hit the recession. And in the recession, that was the type of agent you wanted to be. It was, you had a lot of control. And right now listing agents have had a lot of control. And it's like, you want to be a listing agent because, listings like that. But I think
it can't be a scary, bad market for both buyers and sellers. It can't be by definition.
No, there's always a little balance of power that happens.
That's right. That's right. And so if we've had buyers.
Yeah.
If we've had buyers have all the power, and then it shifts, and it goes from here to here, that's okay. And if it goes from here to here, it's actually been sellers. But anyway, these shifts it's our job to look at them as agents. It's our job to look at our database and go, which one of my buyers are real buyers if the market shifts another 10% in their favor? Which one? And I'm not saying I know how to measure what 10% is. I'm saying like, this is a good question.
Sorry, I was just thinking about how much of a struggle the market was for so many of our agents, just how almost punishing it was when we came into the seller's market. It's probably 3 years ago, I'm thinking. But and agents, how exhausted they were, that they were like, I'm writing so many offers not being accepted. I'm doing 3 times the amount of work. I am so busy, but I'm not putting deals together. There's always these shifts that you get used to your new normal, and it's terrifying when it changes. And sometimes, even though the market theoretically is stronger one way or the other, like the way that we have to work in it changes, and we have to establish new habits. We have to establish new ways of looking at it. And I think that that's one of the things that's really hard. Especially, I mean, we've all come up through an education system that, you know, everything was predictable and you're not really taught how to pivot and all of that. But
we're not taught how to think. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things, I mean, I can't help myself but look at, I mean, I obviously, and I know that, like, I'm, you know, you pointed out, I'm criticized for this heavily too, is it's like, I can't help but see the advantage to wherever I'm at, because I love playing this game. Whatever market it is, whatever we're doing, I just can't, I'm wired just to see the opportunity. And right now, the shifting market, I see a ton of opportunity. It's also opportunity that I've been preparing for a really long time.
If I was Mel or Ella Gray or Antoine or, oh, well, Antoine's been around, but anyway, an agent, in other words, an agent that's been around for enough time to go, cool, I got a rhythm.
Yep.
But maybe not enough time to have 100 deals under their belt, whatever. Just somewhat what we, I'm not gonna call it like Ella newer agent or whatever, but you know, like in these first few years in developing, that's who I was in the last recession.
Yeah.
And that's a better spot than where Karim is today in 2020. That's a better position. It's a stronger position. My position is stronger because of experience. My position is stronger because I have like a big database that cares to hear from me and that kind of thing. But to have a 70% buyer book of business that is connected to you via, I heard there's something called social media that the kids like to use these days.
Yeah.
You know, shit like that. Like, that is a very, very strong position. If I were buying a book of business today, I'm like, cool, I'm ready to go. I got $200,000. I'm going to buy a book of business from an agent. I would not buy Karim Eladine's book of business. No way. I wouldn't. That's not the right buy. The right buy is somebody like Ella. The right buy is somebody that's got a fierce growth and push and a wave behind them, and it's super, super buyer heavy, because that's a 10-year book of business that's super rad. I have been trying actually for the last year and a half to give more weight to our buyer side of business, to really push that. Jessica, I am so grateful that Jessica has evolved as much as she has, and Jessica and Janessa together have evolved to the point where our buyer side team is fierce, and they have loyalty, and they have brand identity, and they have like they're collaborate. It's like a force. And if I didn't have that, if this was happening like 2.5 years ago to me, it'd be even harder. So like I have this new round of that. So would I buy Jessica's book of business? Like maybe, you know, like that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
But the buyer opportunities here, you know, maybe not immediately in week one when everybody's freaking out. Fine, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about yesterday or like tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. I'm talking about like this next month. Where's the opportunity? And I just couldn't agree more with you. I think there is opportunity. I don't think there's opportunity to try to knock out a bunch of deals. And I think that what we're going to see is some e-services try to knock out a bunch of deals. They're out of the market now. They'll come back and they'll look for like that kind of fast opportunity. I don't think there's an opportunity. I think there's an opportunity to do what you and I did in the last recession. I just happen to know you did it too, which is like build some fucking loyalty. I sent out a newsletter to my client base. I got a 97% open rate to a COVID policy, services, resources, financial, small business, etc. like overview package of here's what I have, what I know right now, what information I can share. Can I be of any service to you? I got a 97% open rate on that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but that's one of them. And I didn't include video, and it wasn't social linked or anything. It was just literally an email newsletter.
Yeah.
And you know, and a third of these addresses were 2 members of the same household. This is like mom and dad looking at, mom and mom looking at it. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So connecting and actually being of service right now, this is the opportunity. And it's like grow like an oak tree, man. Deep roots. If we got a new winter, like we had a winter and we started spring and now we got another winter.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck it. Have a winter then. What do you do in winter? Give up? No. What do you do in winter? You book and you plan and you
Yep.
call and you connect and you take a little bit longer lunch and you bake too much fresh pasta and gain 10 pounds.
Work on your database. Work on
And
your database. Yeah, I talked to Kristen today. She sent me an update, and she's just leaning hard into her marketing, just to
Yeah.
like that people know, like, I am here, I am working, I am, I'm your resource. And that's someone that's been around a few recessions and seen things go up and
Yeah.
down, and she's
seen it all.
she knows that her database, or that her buyer pool right now, she didn't get a it's unusual for her to go a week and not get a call from a new buyer like, hey, we're interested in starting the buyer process. And so, she knows exactly the things that she has to do to get in place. We're going to talk in a couple days, and I'll share that too. But yeah, like what I think, these last 3 weeks have been a lot of fear for folks, a lot of trying to figure out where solid ground is. And now I think, like, this week for me feels like, oh, it's the long march. Like, okay, right. Here's the things that I need to do. Here's the things I know how to do. And part of that's like not really as glamorous as freaking out, or not like, or running away, or it's all over. I mean, there's something really free about like, oh, this could just all end what? And then to realize, oh no, I'm back into a new normal, and it just may require again me rehoning my skills. And I think that is hard. That is hard to kind of grapple with. And I think people need to give themselves too. I really hope our agents and the agents out there are giving themselves some grace just to like grieve. Like, it was unexpected. It was a lot of stress. It's a lot of like information to take in, and realizing, not being too hard on themselves. Like, where's my buyer's pipeline? Well, I saw on social media you took off and ran into the woods for a couple weeks, or like I was at the beach, like, because it was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm trying to learn to homeschool my kids. Pretty hard to work on my database when I'm like reorganizing my entire life. And so that's the other thing I'm kind of wondering is, like, as we come back and we all settle in, because this is really different than the recession. Like, this is really, really different than 2008. Like, how deep will it really be? And that we're in it globally. I've heard a lot of people really afraid of inflation, but it's like, again, this is globally. So it's not like pressure on America that's not on the rest of the world. So I don't know. We don't know. Like, we just don't know. So I just go back to like, every day I'm starting with, what are the 3 things I'm grateful for? What are the 3 things I need to get done today? And then a list of 12 things that I hope I can scratch off my list. And eating well, resting, and exercise are on that list.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Fundamentals.
My basement is an office and a gym.
Yeah.
And a place to cry.
Yeah. Amen.
And all those things have happened down here in the last couple of weeks.
Is that a pool of sweat? No.
No. The sweat's in that corner. That's the sweat stain. That's the tear corner.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Cool.
Thank you.
I think to sum up, there's opportunity. It's not that gross kind of like salesy opportunity, like, oh, opportunity, no shooting guns. No, the opportunity is to be really educated about what's been happening. Be really educated about clear and concise market information. There's something real happening.
Yeah.
And then share it freely. It's true that all of our clients are people and they all have their own stories. Listen to them and find out what we can do to help. It's also true that 12 months from now is already like a thing. Like, imagine, like, from today till 12 months from now, like, imagine it's done and then look back what happened. Let's say it's done and what happened was 4 months of not a single fucking buyer calling me. Okay, let's go ahead and paint that picture. Let's say worst case scenario. This is my mom when she went to the Peace Corps when she's 20 years old. She's like, okay, I get malaria and die. Do I still want to go? And that's a great meditation. It's worth trying on.
Yeah.
Nobody calls me for 5 months. And 12 months from now, I look back, what did I do during those 5 months?
Mm-hmm.
Bitched, moaned, gave up, made myself wrong for it, created all kinds of suffering. Or, dude, leaned into the pain and went, Jesus, this is a serious foe. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. I'm scared. Wow. What am I going to do each day? And I took some action. I connected with people, and I either said, I'm not going to do real estate anymore, or I said, because it's like, it's going to be hard, or I said, like, I'm actually committed. I'm committed that a year from now, I am going to be stronger for it, and I'm going to come out. Well, then what am I going to do? I'm going to look for today's opportunity to connect with my people. It's the same thing I've always done. And by the way, that doesn't take 12 hours a day.
No, it does not.
I'm also going to go for a walk and have a beautiful cigar. I'm also going to like connect with a friend. I'm also going to work out. I'm also going to make fresh pasta. Like, because it doesn't take, like, that's a beautiful opportunity here to not do as much. Anyway.
Well, a good reminder too, and that was something that Alyssa Eisenstein Kruger was saying, is that a lot of people make the decision to leave the industry. And so one of her favorite things about working in 2010 is who remained were the best of the best.
Yeah, right on.
The best of the best.
So true. You remember making those calls in 10? It's like,
hey, friend.
Hey, I guess, I don't know how many times in 10 and 11 I had the call that was like with the other agent. I was the listing agent, the buyer agent, and the other agent. I was like, it is so great to have a good communicator on the other line, like we often do when we have a good, you know, a good co-op or whatever they're called. And they're like, I know, it's like everybody I talk to now is like really good. I'm like, yeah, I know. So, Laura Wood and I had that conversation at 50 times. Every time I talked to her, I was like, oh, praise the Lord. Laura. You know, like, I love working with you.
So good. So good. So, well, thanks. Thank you for that. And
Thank you, Janelle.
we got the meeting tomorrow, and we'll talk this week.
Okay, bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.